Donovan, you're the host. Take us away.
You know what Alabama could have used some more of yesterday?
I'm all ears.
Heads up plays.
Hey. Donovan, I'm going to start with you.
Please.
Okay. You may not know this, but it's almost October.
I'm well aware
Okay.
that Halloween decorations are popping up like mushrooms.
Putting mine up next weekend, thank you. How do I know for certain? You might be asking.
That it's almost October?
Yeah.
Or that you know, or you have the audacity to assume you know what you're doing next weekend.
That too. How dare I make plans? This is all I know. Mike Flanagan has a series coming to Netflix soon.
That's right, he does.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
He's been
kind of like, I really did like Hill House, but everything else, it's like, he's not going to like show you something completely new, but he's going to give you like a fun twist on something you already liked. And
Do you know anything?
We get these things like clockwork now.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm about to talk about?
Yeah, I watched a trailer or read something about it a while back. I can't remember.
Cool. It's The Fall of the House of Usher. I just watched the trailer. Right. It looks fun, and it could be really good, or it could be just fine. I don't think it's going to be bad. Mike Flanagan it just isn't bad.
Nah, he's competent, right? Like when you watch one of his things, you like even with like Midnight Mass. Like yes. I think its weakness was like it was a little talky, but it was also like it was compelling.
That was one of my favorite shows of the year.
It was compelling and interesting, and it worked. You know,
it was such an example. Right. That was such an example of horror done right, where you have a true story, you have a true emotional heart.
Mm-hmm.
The Fall of the House of Usher, he's updating the Poe story, obviously, to looks like, recent times this year.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of looks like it's if Succession was a horror show. It looks,
I'm sold.
Me too. Me too. I'm excited.
I'll watch it.
So he's done The Haunting of Hill House, which was good. Ending wasn't great, but it was still pretty good.
It had a real, it had a rough last 30 minutes, but that's all.
Yes.
If that's all you can complain about a show, that's not too bad.
True. He's done Midnight Mass, which I adored.
Yeah. He did Blind Manor for the second season of Hill House.
Blind Manor was
a little
really
rockier, but had some really good parts.
Man, it had some stellar parts. I can remember the funeral home scene with the cameras going all around, and it was almost like an uncut shot, but it was done in the horror genre. I mean,
apparently that's how he sold the thing to Netflix. He used the shot, the funeral home scene. That was like one of the centerpieces of the show.
Yeah. And I've got no problem with him. I have problems with other directors doing this sometimes, or creators, but he's pretty good at taking a pre-written story, putting it in a new context, putting some new scares in it, and then maybe even having some new themes to examine under that sort of microscope.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'm a fan.
He's a good adapter.
He's a good adapter. That's the word.
He's good at well, at least for me. Like he gets to the heart of something, and it's like it's not that it with the work he's adapting, and it's not necessarily that like I'm not looking for like fidelity here. I'm looking for like it works on more like I don't know, like an emotional level. Like even like his take on Dracula, basically for Midnight Mass.
Yeah,
like he gets it. So anyway,
I'm not trying to shut Adam and Natalie out of the conversation, but I wasn't sure if either of you guys had watched these productions. Had you?
I saw Midnight Mass.
Oh, that's right. And Natalie, did you?
I don't watch horror things.
I thought that's what your response was going to be. This one looks okay.
I did, but I don't.
So you just can't? Like it's a impossibility?
Two things tend to happen. One is there's too many jump scares, and I don't enjoy that one bit.
I'm with Natalie.
Or two, they like introduce an idea of horror, and then it never quite measures up, and it's just disappointing.
that's fantastic. I'm really glad you brought both of those up because Mike Flanagan is really good at both of those. He's as close as you can get to someone who gets both of those. But if you don't like the jump scares, Mike Flanagan is not for you. He's the king of them these days.
Man, I tell you what, that one in Hill House, I nearly died. And it was like basically the only one in the whole series, and I almost, like, my spirit left my body.
There was a Natalie. Please tell the story about Donovan playing a video game in the opposite.
Oh, me and Dead Space. I like to talk to myself.
Oh my God. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
When we were in college, I had gone over to y'all's apartment and was like taking a nap or something, and Donovan came home, had no idea I was there.
Yes.
And I wake up and I just hear him, like, he's still, like, I've heard him come in. I don't even know that you, like, turned lights on. You were just playing a video game in the dark or
It was
something.
like the afternoon, if I remember correctly.
But
Yeah.
I woke up and you just started yelling. And then you started saying, "It's okay. It can't get me. It's not real. It can't get me. It's not real." And I was like,
This
"Oh my
is-
God.
this
How do
is-
I get out of this room?"
This is something I don't... I actually like playing horror video games like that, but they just freak me the fuck out because I'm not chill about it, as Natalie has an example for us.
I admire this because it shows that your imagination can still be thoroughly captured. I'm serious.
That's
I
great.
think it's great. Did Midnight Mass have jump scares? I can't remember.
Not really.
It felt more like a slow burn kind of horror. It was almost, I would almost recommend it to Natalie because it bordered on like a folk horror kind of setup too.
Mm-hmm.
But it just used too many cliches for me to,
Wow.
it just, I don't know. There's something even about the veneer of those kind of shows that it's like, oh, it's October, let's roll this out kind of thing that is not interesting to me or enticing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me.
You don't get into spooky season.
I'm more of a sweater weather kind of enthusiast.
What if it was spooky season, but it was only folk horror? Or let me be more clear. What if it was spooky season, but it was only The Wicker Man?
He's in because the great sweaters in Wicker Man.
There
That's
are
great
great sweaters
stuff.
in Wicker Man.
Great stuff. And good safety tips about jumping over fires naked.
Which we all need.
As we go into the cooler weather, it's important to remember.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the times I've looked at a fire and thought to myself, jump it naked or no?
What fertility ritual should I enact now?
Give you a quick opportunity for anyone to comment on a movie you probably haven't seen the trailer for, because I bet none of us want to see. I just think it's funny that it exists. It's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
And I haven't seen the first Aquaman. Aquaman in the Found Kingdom.
Yeah, where he had it. He had it under his... Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's fucking loses it like an asshole.
Donovan's on one today.
Yeah, he is.
I'm drinking water. I'm hydrated.
Natalie, have you watched an Aquaman?
I watched. Has there only been two? I can't keep track. Yes, I've watched
there's
Aquaman.
There's the one, but the Lost Kingdoms and
That's
due
the
in
second
theaters.
one.
Yeah, it's the one that has the trailer out now, the teaser.
Not interested.
Yeah, me either at all. I just think it's hilarious. But I did watch this. It's called a teaser trailer, but it's long. It's full 2 minutes or 2 minutes 30 seconds. You know what? It almost looked okay, but just more of the same of any of that, especially the Aquaman stuff. And I have watched bits and pieces of the first one. It's one of those that I'd put on before while doing house chores. And I would look up and see some of what was going on. So it looked pretty bad overall. But this one, I don't know, and it almost looks fun, and the CGI really looks good. Better than the first one, which I noted because Marvel's has gone downhill so badly. I guess that's why it jumped into my mind just to notice it. So I don't know. It's a mess all around. These movies are coming out now though and aren't getting any celebrity interviews.
Yeah,
That's
everyone's
kind
on
of the
strike
big thing
still.
now.
This isn't really related to that, but I'm just like, who did they make that Blue Beetle movie for? Like, who was
That's a good
clamoring for a
question.
Blue Beetle movie?
That's a good question, and it got reviews that were, I guess, somewhere between good and great.
Yeah, apparently it was good. I don't think I'll ever watch it, but
No, me
but how
either.
did they spin the franchise wheel? You know, like Blue Beetle, the masses need him.
It's
What's the
one of
same,
those.
I feel like with like the Shazam thing. Like the first Shazam movie was huge, and I don't know a single person who saw it. So big that they made a second one packed full of like celebrity cameos. Again,
Yes.
I don't know who saw it except for all the people on the airplane I was with. They were all watching Shazam too. That's how I know
Yeah.
about all the cameos.
You know that might have been it. It might have
That
just
was
been
the entirety of their.
Airplane audiences.
Yes. We will. There's no pause if you're watching YouTube. There's no pause. We'll just get right into the real show.
I like to think what we did was real, Blaine.
It's real.
I thought that was really good.
It's from the heart. So
It's our
welcome
AI
to
portion.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah, that wasn't really us. It might have
We're
looked like us, clones, if you will.
we're just generating content.
Yeah. Oh, what a sad phrase that is. Hello, everyone. We're here. We're taking it down. You're here. You're with us. You're so sweet to join us. We're not clones. We're real. I don't want to go one step too far into this podcast without thanking our donors. We ran a week-long donor drive with the Alabama Take as a whole, but I don't know if we could call ourselves the flagship program, but we're kind of like one of the backbones of the Alabama Take. And anyway, the donation campaign ended last week, and I'll run through a quick thank you list of those who are not anonymous. We want to thank Mallory McCormack. She's host, by the way, of the Stare Down podcast. Justin Nelson, Mark Falk.
Aw.
Yeah, and he even sent a very sweet note with his. So thank you, Mark. Shani Gentry Sincotti, which is an old friend of mine. Brian Oliu, featured writer sometimes for The Take. Krista Halbrook. Trying to keep an eye on some of these lists so that I don't say anyone who's anonymous, just in case they want to keep it that way. Paige Coster, thank you very much. Samantha Simmons, one of the helpers, editors, writers for The Take. Gia Bates, Josh Hamilton, not the actor, Josh Hamilton, the gentleman from Birmingham. Todd Egger, I've mentioned him on the show. Drew Kello.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Drew. Adam knows you.
Sweet Drew.
There we go. Ty Edmondson, one of the guest hosts quite often for this show, helped out. Michael Wood. So thank you all. There's several more who wish to remain anonymous. I will not break your anonymity. If nothing, it's the only time we've ever done a donation drive, and I don't plan to again. Might have to in like 2 or 3 years, if like our hosting costs go up due to inflation or something again crazy. But we don't want to do it yearly like that set of chumps over at NPR.
Yearly? I wish they'd do it yearly.
How often do they do it?
It's like every other week.
They got Bo Hicks in the studio every other week.
I
Shilling
think about
for-
Bo talking about the driveway stories.
Begging for your nickels.
But yeah, at most we do it every 2 or 3 years or something just to get donation. If you want to help, there's actually a little donation page. I don't think a lot of people know about it. You go to thealabamatate.com and you can click on donations. You can click on shop and we get a portion of anything bought from our online store. And that way you can kind of get something for your money and we get a little chunk of change from that too. It's not a lot, but it helps. You can do that and make your heart grow 3 times its size.
Guys, I saw a t-shirt. You may have seen it because you live in a different part of the country than I do. But I saw a t-shirt the other day. It was the Trump mugshot, and it said never surrender. But he is surrendering. That's why he got his mugshot taken.
It's literally surrendered to have that photo made.
What a great segue to our first segment, which is Lauren Boebert.
What's Donnie T up to now?
We want to talk Mitt Romney's retiring. No, we don't.
I love the politics segment of this
The
podcast.
segment of this podcast lasts exactly 2 minutes.
I think the best thing to come.
The most
Sorry.
likable few stories about Mitt Romney and Boebert, who thankfully I watch so little news that I always question, am I saying that name right? Because that sounds very pretty. Just blowing vape clouds and getting feel skis in a crappy play, and then Romney eating gross salmon sandwiches and watching streaming alone.
He slathers salmon with ketchup and eats it
Horrible.
like a sandwich.
That's like some Patrick Mahomes level buffoonery. But, I mean, it's, who's not just watching streaming alone while eating a sandwich, That's pretty relatable.
No, there's your America.
The people's senator. Eating your disgusting shame sandwich.
I'll tell a quick tale out of school. I was texting with Adam and Donovan Friday night and yesterday, and I was so unawares that the Lauren Boebert video surveillance footage existed. I'd only seen the G-rated from CNN where she's escorted out and just tugging at her dress to keep it above water. And then Adam sends me a link of the black and white footage of her and her gentleman friend just groping one another. Just
during the Beetlejuice musical, no less.
I think the truly shocking thing is how good closed-circuit television cameras are in theaters in Denver.
Well, Donovan will have a lot more of this on his theater podcast this week.
CC in Denver.
We will get started properly, a little more properly. Last week I gave a spoiler-free overview of The Changeling from Apple TV Plus. Just run it down. It stars Lakeith Stanfield as a rare book salesman who's fallen for a librarian in Queens, New York, named Emma. One thing leads to another. They become a pair. Things happen. That's all I will say. It's based on the book of the same name, written by I want to say he's a really good author, great author, Victor Laval. And unless you want spoiled on the first 4 episodes, maybe 2 or 3, we'll see how far we get. All 4 are streaming now. We will get 2 deep at least. At the very
I watched 1 because I hate doing homework.
Anyway, look at the timestamps that we offer you in the podcast description. If you're in Spotify, those are clickable. So are they in YouTube. And they'll skip ahead to our thoughts and comments on Welcome to Wrexham instead. Donovan, you and I commented on Victor Laval's book from this year. We did that last week. It's called Lone Women. But I wanted to bring it back up because I think this show is a good indication of a guest that I have. It's a style that he has. See, I've only read that book and I've only watched this show, so I'm sort of doing some mental leaps here. I don't think it's unfair to say these things, but he's not a one-trick pony or anything, but it does seem like his writing involves some kind of twist a bit, and he's got a certain signature to him. He's the narrator of the opening of the show, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good question because I've read also Ballad of Black Tom by him.
Oh, really?
And that was but that one was sort of predicated on a twist because it's taking a famously awful H.P. Lovecraft story and rewriting it. So the whole thing is like you kind of like the things are familiar and the characters are familiar, but you don't really know what's going to happen.
He strikes me as an author who writes books that are good. They're entertaining. They're easily read. They latch onto you. But he's also maybe an author whose writing works even better thematically on screen. It has a more profound effect seeing it or watching actors act it out. With Lone Women, I had this thought reading it, long before I knew he had written The Changeling or that I was going to watch it, that I thought this would be a pretty good maybe show or movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not having like a deep reverberation with me, but I'm just enjoying the hell out of it.
I'd watch that. I'd watch that movie.
And I
He
think
is kind of cinematic, isn't he? Like
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think if you put definitely that book, because it's set in Montana in 1918.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put that on the screen and you have the right actors in writing, I do think its themes will get at you a bit more. Not to reveal anything about lone women, I won't do that, because honestly, there's a couple of surprises in there, or even early in the book.
Yeah, it's good just to read. Just read it.
Good just to read.
Just read it. It's good.
I like the setting. It's a very original take on that setting.
I really like the setting.
Montana.
I felt like it was doing stuff that I've seen other shows attempt to do, but not really pull off, especially with yeah, I liked it.
What was the movie we watched? Very similar setting, Montana, West, 1918. It's like after the West is kind of sort of ended, but there's still remnants of it.
You know the Power of the Dog, dude.
That was the one, yeah. Jane Champion.
Yep.
Oh, man, that was good. Anyway, let's get into The Changeling. We'll get some more thoughts. This one's been called by Vulture as an adult fairy tale. You like that assertion?
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
I think it makes sense to me too. I'm always curious by what we mean different things when we call something a fairy tale sometime, but putting all that aside, I think it works.
If the author of the Vulture recap section had seen 4 episodes deep, I get how he or she came to that conclusion. It's a little more evident there. Worth noting, a changeling is a child believed to have been substituted by fairies. I had to look that up. A child substituted by fairies, so that the parents maybe don't recognize it, but at the same time, it's not really a cute little thing. It's monstrous. Donovan, am I getting that definition right?
Yeah, it's basically like the magical version of a cuckoo bird, right? Like they take your baby and they leave something else there, and you raise this horrible thing.
Isn't that what they used to say about before they knew like autism was a thing? People would basically call their autistic children changelings.
That's intense, really.
After a couple of years, their kids would just change and be totally different.
No, I didn't know that. I mean, I don't like that. Like, I think we should do that, but I like that information.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Oh, I like that. Let's go back to that, shall we?
Let's get that.
Get out of here, you little
Get on
changeling. You little fucking changeling. Get the fuck out of here.
That's what I'm
they would
screaming
call
at my
them that
cats
to
every
their
night.
face.
Oh.
They would say like the fairies took my child and whatever.
It reminds me of a quick story I'll insert here that I had a student said aloud the other day. I hate artistic people. And there were some students across the room that thought she said, I hate autistic people. They were like, whoa, hey.
Taking a stand.
Yeah.
Why does she hate artistic people?
Yeah, that's what I want. What does she have
can't.
against the artists of the world?
She was asked to draw something and it was horrible.
Oh, I see.
It wasn't coming out very well. In The Changeling, Apple TV Plus, there's this motif of returning to places and people, parenthood, motifs, I should say, journeys.
And like repetition too, right?
Yeah.
Like
And
things
then the repetition itself.
just like Ripple.
Books and stories are telling a story over and over. Birth as magic. Hubris. Bit of hubris happening. And some of that points to maybe some of this is even kind of sort of about postpartum depression, which Adam and Nellie can comment more on because episode 2. You're going to have to stop me when
Adam and Natalie know all about. Take it away.
Like, what do you know that we don't know?
It might be my confusion on what happens in episode 2 versus 3 and 4 because I've been rushing through them. So y'all are gonna have to say no, don't say that, or I'm not gonna spoil it like openly for 3 and 4, but y'all may have to remind me.
Yeah, they do linger on that quite a bit in episode 2, and she even takes the baby for a checkup hoping that the doctor can say something's wrong. But when nothing is medically wrong, the doctor then asks, "How are you?" kind of thing. The episode opens with her being told, you're not sleeping. It's okay to take like a Benadryl and conk out for all. They're clearly not well. The adjustment has not gone well.
I think it does a good job of doing that by keeping a mystery going. Like, that's real. That feeling and that look she has on her face, and even her walking down the street in episode 2 saying, "Baby, please shut up, please go to," I mean, that's real. And I don't think you should feel guilty about, doing that. Some passerby looks at her funny and she says, "Don't say anything to me." That's in
Yeah,
episode 2.
yeah, it is. And the reality that the camera creates and that the story creates could be either supernatural in some way or just completely exhausted narration, if that makes sense. Like,
Can you? What do you mean? You're not talking about the snapshot someone's taking out on the street, are you?
no, I'm talking about the camera, the way the story is the show is filmed and presented. Like, everything has a dreamlike quality to it. A lot of the focus is really tight, blurred edges. The lighting is usually pretty dramatic and intense,
Mm-hmm.
and it just feels either, to use the phrase again, dreamlike, or in that kind of heightened state of reality that comes if you haven't had a good night's sleep in who knows how long. So that when things start to happen, obviously it's easy for him to dismiss the text that you're talking about, the pictures that come to her, as you don't know how your phone works, you're tired, blah, blah, blah. And we know that that's not dreamlike. That's just like, it is dreamlike, it's nightmare-esque, but that is real. But other things that maybe she's observing could just be because she's exhausted, that it's waiting to drop the supernatural element. Natalie compared it a bit to True Detective season 1, where it kind of toes that line of, is this or isn't it? What's reality here? And what you have compared it to something else too, Nat?
Lovecraft Country.
Yeah,
That's funny. I was thinking about Lovecraft Country too with this one.
The HBO show?
The HBO show, yeah. Which I never finished because it turned out to be bad.
It did.
Yeah.
It did, and got canceled. This one's better if you want to know vague things about through episode 4. It gets
I would have said even through episode 2, it's a good bit stronger. Although Lovecraft opened pretty strong, but
Lovecraft had a good couple episodes to start with, and then
yeah.
Anyone perceptive and note that Emma does not use an Apple phone on an Apple show, and that's telling.
I guess she doesn't, does she?
That's always telling on an Apple show.
Every time you see her smartphone, it's just like a smartphone. It's not an Apple.
I wondered about that. is it? But it's not a green text, Nat. You'll have to weigh in here. It's not a actual phone, is it? Like it's like some fictionalized thing, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I assumed it was just like John Q phone, like
Right.
an amalgamation.
Mm-hmm. But if you watch any other Apple shows, which we do, we're fans. We talked about this last week, but everyone's got an Apple phone because it's free, it's product placement,
and they always look good.
and they look good. Yeah, I don't argue that. It feels substantial. I don't have a comment on this, but I just kept rolling it through my mind. Both Apollo and Emma had white fathers, and this is a story about parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just trying to piece that together mentally. I didn't know if any of you guys would have.
I always wondered if it seems like it took a while, and I remember talking on here before about the way that phones have been presented over time, and the inclusion of text messaging into TV shows, and how it's done, and how different shows at different times we said, oh, they do that really well. Like, just show it on the screen and show the character reacting, or, how do you integrate this new technology? But I still think it's like a viable option for a writer or director to not want anything too grounding in our reality, to take people out of the story, especially if it's intended to have kind of a fairy tale dreamlike quality to it. I mean, they're also not like going to Times Square or standing in front of the Empire State Building or showing the Statue of Liberty or something. Yet they're in. I mean, I know that people who live in Queens don't like hang out in Manhattan, but it's very, very generic in the way that it presents all these things.
Mm-hmm. That is
So
true.
the film fits to me.
The first episode, the only time I was like, oh, it's New York, is like when they get out of the restaurant and it's crowded. Other than that, and then of course they do this, go on the subway, right? But other than that, it's like it's completely nondescript. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's completely not. It could be anywhere.
She gives birth to the baby at the end of episode 1
on the subway, right?
I agree with that.
No, yeah, I should have put that more in the form of a question, but yeah, I was asking. I was making sure that's what I was talking about with the end of episode 1. I think that too. A lot of these plot points feel purposeful, especially I tend to think that if it comes from a book, I think, okay, so that's in there, and they chose to leave it in there for the movie or the television show, so it's got to be a reason, or they've got a certain feel for the text, and they kind of want it to maintain that feeling. So the baby being born underground, I thought, oh, okay, that's a nice little touch if this is kind of going Changeling style anyway, or Changeling fairy tale. Yeah, very cool, interesting, and crazy. I'll touch on something because it's in my notes later in my notes, and I'm bringing it back around. There's just a realness to that representation of both mother and father's level of specificity of tired. It's different for both of them, but it's there. The mother can be, I mean, that is such a great display of feeling crazy. I can remember Kelly telling me with our daughter, I feel crazy and I haven't slept, or I'm so tired that I feel mentally insane. It's just a great way for Laval it's a good device for him to tell this particular story, I think. And the father, if he's a champion and helping out like Lakeith Stanfield's character Apollo is, there's some tired there too. And you feel really weird. I wrote a piece on the Alabama Take about when my daughter was first born. I was also wrapping up Twin Peaks, The Return, and
I remember that piece.
It worked perfectly, but at the same time, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
because I was walking around in a dream quality anyway, and this show, The Changeling, is kind of giving anyone who wants to experience that just a little taste of what that could be or what it feels like. What do you think about his father? This is Apollo, getting back into the show. What do you think about Apollo's father coming to him in a dream quite often, maybe as a kid, in that blue, very scary mask?
I just got to see more, right? Because it's at least for me, I haven't gotten any big theme of that besides the one like, well, like Apollo's dad wants to be a great dad. Apollo wants to be a great dad. Apollo's dad disappeared. Apollo's still here, but has the weird dream, and is maybe taken somewhere as a child by his father. But I just want to see. I'm sure it'll get connected with everything else. I just want to see. I'm not smart enough to figure out what's going on with it.
Well, they delve into in episode 2, which I'm sure we're going to get into this a little bit, the reliability of childhood memory.
I love it. What do you think? Let's get into episode 2. I'm open to some anything you want to say about episode 2 specifically.
Well, just the way that one of her childhood memories, a core foundational memory, is clarified by her sister, and who I guess you could count as like the reliable narrator for her, where he doesn't have that to help untangle, what the dad dream or whatever, whatever the stuff. You said things repeat a lot, and I keep thinking they're just on these, and not to go True Detective, but they're on these circles of time that just keep on spinning and spinning and spinning. And the whole thing kind of becomes hypnotic from episode to episode, of trying to figure out what's real and what was, I don't know. It's definitely in a heightened reality of, I think they showed us that for a reason, and you've seen more episodes than me, obviously, but when you asked Donovan that, I couldn't help but think of her and the fire memory.
It really makes me wonder about that opening scene of the boat, the ship from Europe.
Norway. Norwegian ship.
I was going to say Denmark, Norway. Like, how would that be part of the circle? One of the circles we're seeing. Very interested to see. I think the runtime I'll take episode 3, for example, since I'm only talking runtime. I think it was 50 minutes, maybe somewhere between 50 and 55 credits. Can reduce that. It flies by. I seriously I didn't pick up my phone except to make some notes. But I'll compare that to Ahsoka, which was 35 or 40 minutes, and it's one of its recent episodes, and it dragged. I kept thinking, is it almost over? When it came to Ahsoka. When it came to the Changeling, I thought, that's it? So I'm having a fun time watching this show.
I'll say the first 2 episodes for me were not difficult watches, but I felt the full weight of the time, for sure. I don't know that it's like I think it's good and it's holding up to analysis really well, but I'm not sure that it's like an enjoyable watch for me.
Oh, really? You don't enjoy the bit of, I don't want to say mental challenge, the bit of mental stimulation it gives you to keep up with some of the timelines and things?
No, just spoon feed it to me. No, I think what you said about
I love it.
About hubris is what can get me sometimes with these shows. And I wish Natalie would jump in here. She's just letting all this fly by.
Especially with what you thought about the run times and if you're enjoying it.
Well, we took the dogs on a walk immediately after watching the second episode this week, and I said something about hubris, that it's hard to, these characters have a certain amount of arrogance to the way that they approached life, and I think a lot of that was understandably based on wanting to create a reality that goes against their own upbringing, right? And that the belief that they could do better. Paulo wanted to be a great dad. A mom wanting to appear as if she's got things figured out. Apollo doing the thing like cutting the bracelet before time and saying, well, especially he invokes the speech that he's given a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Calling himself a god even, and messing with the spiritual thing when
without
they even
her consent, by the way.
Without her consent, yeah.
That struck me.
So it can be almost hard to root. They're not on like a hero's journey. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They have placed themselves in harm's way in a lot of respects. Even with the bracelet, it was without her consent, but she was told not to go to the waterfall. She still went and still engaged. So I don't know.
Were you to put another actor in here, but other than Lakeith Stanfield, you might be treading some tough ground to want to pull for the characters at all.
Man, I think that he's just so likable for me that even, like, especially the thing Adam pointed out, where he, like, the arrogance of being like, I am the god Apollo, and then doing something based on. I mean, it's like, it's arrogant. It's also, you can tell there's a little bit of like a little kid, like trying to make himself feel better. But like, just the fact that like I'm just like, I want to see what happens to this guy is how much I just absolutely love Lakeith Stanfield. He just disappears into a role.
Here are my thoughts on this show. A lot of times I watch horror things and I think I sure would like for this to have just been a book so I can read it and be done with it. I sure am glad this one's a book. I'm just going to read it. I don't want to wait.
I've got great news for you.
I know.
It's a book. It's probably a pretty good one.
Got good reviews.
Does it?
It got really good reviews when it came out.
And you're stuck with it. Wow. There's a couple of things I would say, but I'd be getting into episode 3. I will say that episode 4, I think it finally shows a few of the show's faults. Every show is going to probably have a few. Episode 4 might give it one or two many threads than it needs. And I get that they're using an adaptation. And sure, if it's in the book, that's wonderful. But I think as a showrunner or a writer, you can say that's a little too much for the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can stuff a lot more in a book than you can in a movie or TV show. I think it's just the nature of it.
I agree. And I think episode 4 might do that a little. Now, if it plays out, then, I mean, kudos. Then it's going to be great. I'm just really enjoying it. Cannot say too many bad things about it, other than it might have a thread or two too much come episode 4. Natalie, what do you think, though, as just going back to what Adam said, runtime, enjoyment, quality?
I mean, it's fine. I just don't enjoy these kinds of, like, it really just goes back to, like, I'm not interested in watching horror. I like the story. If the stories are good, I like the stories, which is why I'll read it in a book. Mm-hmm. But, like, it takes a lot for something like in this genre to really capture my attention. And this one, I'm 50% on it. I'm not giving up yet, but if episode 3 doesn't really sink its hooks in, then I may be done with it.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask if it was the horror or if it was just enough magical realism to assuage you.
So that's what I think.
It doesn't feel like horror.
That's what episode 3 needs to do for me, is give me more of that. And if it doesn't, then I don't want to just... I don't like to sit and be stressed. Why would anybody enjoy that? You guys are crazy if you enjoy that.
That's a good question, and I do not have an answer to. I'm going to get with my therapist this week, and we'll come back.
We'll start something up for us.
It's cathartic.
It's cathartic, sure. Mm-hmm. I will say that I'm excited to hear from you, maybe via text, maybe next week's episode, after you see who's in episode 3. I have a feeling some of y'all might recognize him.
Is it Tim Allen?
It's Lauren Boebert.
He's almost unrecognizable at this state in his career.
The Changeling. So there are our opinions, little varied. We're all on a little bit different area of enjoyment, I think, of the Changeling. Adam, any final things I didn't bring up you wanted to say?
I think there's a lot to discuss there. I was surprised at how many opinions I had once we got rolling.
Yeah, it's pretty packed. That's a show that's got some things happening. We'll have to wait till the end to see if it had something to say fully as a show. There it is, the Changeling. We'll take a quick little break, and on the other side, we're going to talk just a little of Welcome to Wrexham. Y'all doing a little mowing today?
Someone is.
Oh, is it you?
It's my neighbor. Someone outside my window is mowing.
He mows every Sunday. Okay, thanks. We're back. Thanks to you all. Welcome to Wrexham, back on telly. Did I do that right? Did I?
You did it right.
Okay.
On the telly.
This isn't related to and it's Adam's story, not mine. It's not really related to Wrexham, but whenever I think of Wales now, I think of this past year, Adam, when you were in Wales and you had like that red ale or whatever, and it was like something unpronounceable. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but my memory of the story is you asked the person at the bar, like, how do I pronounce it? Like, how do I as an American pronounce this? And she was like, don't ask me, I'm Polish.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That's all. That's all I can think of with Wales now.
I was ready. She hadn't said a word yet. She just like looked at me at this busy bar and smiled as if like, go ahead and order.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I, wanted to order whatever the local stuff was, and she said, I have no idea. So
Yeah. That's so funny.
we both just worked on the pointing.
Thoughts on Wales as a country? Since you and
It's got a
Natalie
cool
have been.
flag, doesn't it? But they're
Oh,
weird
it's got
about
an
those
amazing
leaks.
flag. Dragons.
Yeah.
Wales is very cool. I'm very pro Wales.
Is there a distinct difference when you get into Wales versus being in any other part of the UK?
Yes, and that's a loaded question. Yes, the answer is yes to start
I
with.
guess
But
you can be very kind and just say geographically. Like when you're in the South, geographically, you can pinpoint a couple of things. Or if you're in the West, obviously the Rocky Mountains. Is there?
yeah, for sure. But there's enough variation region to region. Yeah, it all looks different. But yeah, I mean, there's Welsh on all of the signs. Like it's a rule that street sign, road sign, directions, even simple things like the directions in a hotel about what to do in case of a fire are also written in Welsh, and they just look crazy.
No word should have that many Y's.
Right.
Which is why you got burned.
Yeah.
While in Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just rolled.
Adam burned up.
Stop, dropping what? No, but they're we played in a place that it's not a big city, and they were having like a festival kind of thing with a stage inside this, like an Egan's kind of bar, not insane physically, but kind of like the anchor of the community and the music scene, and it was very good vibes. There were like families outside and inside some too. One would play on the inside stage. It was a lot bigger than Egan's, but play on that stage, and then one would play outside, and people would just flip back and forth between the two. It was great. The establishment next door had one of the giant flags that Donovan was talking about, and it said something like "Never forget who you are" or something along those lines. It's like Welsh pride is pretty intense, and I'll say all the bands in that scene were very, very, very good. I feel like sometimes in touring across America, regionalism gets lost, and like being very proud of the little scene that you're in, because people are always kind of one eye on the interstate, and these people were living it. It was cool. We were a long way from Wrexham, but I had, I got the Welsh experience.
Lots of songs about Super Paul Mullen, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Exclusively.
Now, when you went with Natalie, the most recent trip, did you all go to Wales? Okay.
We did not.
Okay, I was including her on my last question, but that's because I got the two trips confused.
Didn't make it all the way over there. She really wants to go to Cardiff.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to Cardiff?
Why is that now?
Is there a reason why? Yeah.
That's where they film all the Doctor Who.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or they used to. I don't know if they still do or not.
Okay. Why? Do you know why? Is it just a vibe?
Tax breaks.
Yeah, I was going to say, might be.
Oh, that is a question.
I'm going to clear the pitch and let Adam run with the ball. What do you do in soccer? Dribble the ball? I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't run with it. You can't pick it up and run with it.
You're running with the ball.
Okay.
I like to think you're running after the ball.
Yeah, sometimes. Let's clear the pitch and let Adam run with the ball. Wax poetic about welcome to Wrexham. One episode 2
I love
episodes.
these shows so much about sports. Sports are fun. It's I thought this show at moments, there was one episode in particular last season that was just so good about like what sports means to a community and what it can mean to, it's like a tie through history. I mean, for Alabama football, for us, I'm sure, well, not Donovan or Nat, but Blaine, I'm sure you had family, several generations back who would have opinions about Alabama football. And even though maybe they're gone, you're still in some way part of this long-standing spectrum of people who care about the same team. And that's a fun link.
A tapestry.
A tapestry. You're part of a tapestry, right? So I think that stuff is super cool. And the moments where they leaned into that were fantastic. And that was even true in this first episode with the terraces, them tearing that down. I thought that was one of the stronger moments, was having people reminisce about what those meant, the memories that they had, the pub owner talking about sneaking into his first game as a kid and just being hooked for life. And
Wayne Jones, star of the show.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
I also love that the show has become a bit meta, as it had to by default. It's not clever. It's just like if you put real people in real places that you can go visit on very famous television shows, they're probably going to get interrupted when they're filming, And
he's
but he
so
was great.
kind about it, right? Well, he's on camera, but he's very nice. He's like, "Hey, yeah, it's one. Yep, we're filming. Okay."
You got to think that they're enjoying their newfound celebrity.
And it makes you wonder. It's kind of like the Saban effect. How many years is it going to take before they hate it? With Tuscaloosa, we found that it drew in a certain atmosphere and crowd at times, the more success that the team had.
Although, I mean, what they want is to go. I don't know that there's a like for like comparison there.
It's not right.
What they want is to climb higher and higher, but I mean, there are people traveling from all over to see the games, but I'm not sure how much their daily lives would be impact. Maybe. I mean, they're all they stand to make a lot of money, at least everybody on the show, from the team doing well. So,
do they get to a point where they just hate Rob and Ryan for doing that? For they hate their success almost, but that's to be determined.
The only way, and they set up a way that they could hate them, is that you have to invest so much that if it doesn't work, it's hard to recover from. Like, it has to work. They laid those stakes out. Those are the stakes of season 2, right?
They're very clear.
Yeah.
I might be jumping ahead here on what you guys want to comment on, but what a sad gut punch of an ending. The loss of the match paired with not getting funding for the cop, the tears, and those stands behind the goal. That's just doubling down on sadness, because when they lose the match, I thought, oh, okay, that's the end of the episode. But then you get a couple, I think, one or two more scenes of them on their Zoom meeting, hearing from one of their managers telling them, no, we did not get the funding despite meeting Charles III, King Charles III.
Which was very surreal to see.
Weird. Right. It was
especially when he made an Always Sunny reference.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to bring it up.
We paused it and said, has his life become so numb? He's so famous and so everything's going well. Did he zoom back and think, me and my degenerate friends made this thing for barely any budget that just came out of the King of England's mouth? Or is he just so used to surrealness in his life that, because I found it so strange.
I bet he reflected on it. I'm sure when you're in the moment, you're just in the moment.
Can I interrupt
with
a It's Always Sunny reference that happened this week?
Right.
Don't piss yourself. Please, no, you're yeah.
After Adam had his surgery on Monday,
This is a real.
we talked a little
digression.
bit about that
Yeah,
last
let's
week.
hear it.
You know, I drove him. We were waiting on his medicine to get done at the. What do you want to say? Are you interrupting me? It did. It did.
Well, just
Full
that
anesthesia.
that
He was
the
all the way
surgery
under.
turned out to be more of a to-do. I was
But we're
not
waiting on his
completely out.
Medicine.
Breathing
And
tube,
he says he's
everything.
hungry
I'm
and he
fine,
wants a
everyone.
breakfast
Don't
burrito.
worry.
So we go get him a breakfast burrito. He's sitting in the front seat of my car, and I watched him very carefully and meticulously unwrap the foil around this burrito. Finally gets it all like patted down around the burrito. And then he stops and he turns and looks at me and he just says, egg. And he was shocked. I did not understand that he was referencing It's Always Sunny in that moment.
But here's why: because in this group's group text, you were complaining about the challenge times. We went over this going from Sunday to Thursday, or Sunday and Thursday to this Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think I sent you that GIF
All
of
you said
Frank
was
holding up, "May I offer
egg."
you an egg in this distressing time?"
Exactly. As
And
a limo
that's-
driver.
But it's because they make that Patty's commercial. Remember, and they just go to Frank and he's just holding an egg and he just goes, egg. And there's no context there either. I'm not defending the fact that I had context. I'm just saying there was a reference point.
I will step in and defend Adam in two ways because I've been there. One, when you're just coming out of that anesthesia fog, even for the rest of the day, you think things that you think other people are thinking. It's very much like a lot of other drugs. And the second thing is everything is in slow motion. So him spreading out the thing, I have done that. Coming out of anesthesia and just like preparing my cereal very slowly.
Anyways, the
It's
King
like,
of
I
England would
don't know.
understand
I
that
better get this
reference.
right. Yeah. So, welcome. That's right.
The King
He
of
got
England popped up and said egg, and then he left.
Yeah. Welcome to Wrexham. Had King Charles III, the most recent king here, making a. It's always sunny. It's always sunny there. Isn't that his question?
Yeah.
He asked. So, I think we're all pretty glad it's back on TV. Adam, you might know where the season's going, kind of. Don't you know some of the
for sure.
I don't. I chose not to. Donovan, where are you?
I also mostly choose not to. Like, the most I know about Wrexham is they had a lot of fun getting whipped by Man U and Chelsea this summer in the United States.
Which is after
Yes.
this season.
So I have some guesses. But
So
like,
that might not even be included in the show.
I would be surprised because that was in preseason for the season that's currently happening. If that makes sense.
We'll wrap Wrexham. Anything y'all want to add? Like, I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I might have missed anything cool or fun.
I think the least interesting part of the show to me is, and it's still fun most of the time, is the two famous dudes being famous. You know,
100%
so like
agree with that.
them doing like the it's ironic that I can't even think of it. When the woman's training them to meet the king, what do you call that? Etiquette training. It was kind of like, okay, this is enough of that. But the real point with the two of them is, and they kind of address it in show, is that they are two pretty famous and very famous actors with, you would think, pretty large bank accounts, asking the UK government to bankroll their project. Which I know that's like how things work, but I know in America we're pretty sick of billionaires using public taxpayer money to build new stadiums every 20 years. And it's not apples to apples because this is improvements on an actual
historic landmark.
Yeah, it's a landmark, and they're not building something new. It was decrepit and needed to be. They're doing it the best way possible, but it was still like, you know, as the setback for the episode, I didn't really care at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're trying to create a balance between how much of the audience is tuning in for Ryan and Rob and how much of the audience is tuning in for the Wrexham people they've come to know and maybe love. And it can be a jarring juxtaposition between those two elements. And I think the show honestly could lean into that, maybe, and even find a clearer voice, because I do think that it sometimes lacks an exact style or voice because of those things. Last year they had even this weird episode that wasn't at all learning Welsh customs, and it was
that didn't do a lot for me.
Yeah, me either.
That was the worst episode for sure.
Right.
It just felt like filler.
It did. It made it an episode too long.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe season 2 they can find, here's what we are. Here's what we want to say with this documenting process. All right. So we'll end there. But there's more. TheAlabamaTake.com. You can find all kinds of things. Taking It Down Pod is we're now kind of in more places. We're on TikTok, Taking It Down Pod, and we're on Blue Sky, Taking It Down Pod. We'll keep it all the same. I don't like that handle, but that's what we are on Threads and Instagram as well. So we'll just keep it as uniform as possible. Honestly, just trying to move away from Twitter. It's just such a... I'm not going to say my experience has been totally bad, but it's just so weird now. It's just, every time I post something, I get some sort of weird reply from a bot or a person who wants to argue or you name it. Anyway, we're trying to wean away from there. Go find us and the Alabama Take, our production team and website host, wherever you want. Final thoughts, Donovan?
Let's go Wrexham.
I think we can agree. Let's go Wrexham. Goodbye, everyone.